Hey everyone, welcome back to a new video. Before I begin on the stories, I just wanted to mention, if you have your own personal scary story that you would like to send me for me to possibly narrate here on the channel, you can do so by sending it to southerncannibal.com. So if you have a personal true scary story that you'd like to share, please consider sending it my way. Now that all that's out of the way, let's begin. A few weeks ago, I drove to my local Target to do my favorite hobby, buy shit I don't need. The area this Target is located in has always been pretty safe, but just a little before this incident, there was a car robbery in the same shopping center parking lot. Someone was held at gunpoint and then forced to hand over their car, but the guy who stole it was caught, and no one was injured. Anyways, the parking lot was fairly empty, which was pretty uncommon for it being a Friday afternoon. As I pulled into the parking spot right outside the store, just a few spots away, I saw a bald man dressed in a black hoodie and jeans then approach two women probably in their mid-30s as they were packing their groceries into their car. I thought this was a little suspicious, so I kept my eyes on them as I then turned off my car and placed my keys in my bag. They were probably chatting for about 10 seconds, until the man reached out and grabbed one of the lady's arms. She quickly pulled away, and both women then got in their car. As they started to back up, the man moved to the side and looked over at me. As soon as we made eye contact, all I could think was, oh fuck. I'm an 18-year-old female, and I barely have the strength of a small hamster. Therefore, if the man tried anything with me, I would have a very difficult time fighting back. The man was momentarily blocked from my view as the car with the two ladies backed out of the space and then drove away. As soon as I broke brief eye contact, I grabbed my phone from my cup holder and pretended to look busy. Not even 2 seconds after opening my phone, there was a loud bang on my window. I quickly looked up, and I was then met with the man's face not even 5 inches away from my driver's side window. I just stared at him like a deer in the headlights, not knowing what to do. He hit my window again and then yelled, "Roll down the window!" My car was already off at this point, and there was no way I was going to find my keys, turn on my car, and then open my window to talk to this man. I shook my head no, and he hit my window yet again, then saying, "Please, I just want to ask you a question." Now, I'm an avid lover of horror story channels on YouTube, and I've heard enough stories to know this situation definitely wasn't safe. I instinctively blurted out no to him as he stared at me through the glass with a hateful gaze. Then out of frustration, he smacked my window a few more times and then yelled, "Well, whatever then, you fucking bitch!" And he then turned around, smacking the hood of the car next to me, and walked away. I was in absolute shock of what had just happened, and I sat in my car for probably about 15 minutes before I finally felt safe enough to walk into the Target. Nothing happened after that, and I reported what happened to a Target employee who said they would alert security. Thankfully, I still had a pleasant time roaming around Target and buying unnecessary shit. This didn't happen directly to me, but from my father's experience. I'm a 33-year-old female, and this happened back when I was around 4 years old. My parents had taken my 2-year-old sister and me to our local Target because my mom wanted to get us some new swimming suits for the summertime. As my mom took my sister and me into the fitting room, my dad had waited for us in the kids' clothing section. He then noticed a man from my father's guess around mid to late 20s standing by himself near the girls' swimming suit section. The man was hunched over in a very awkward position. It was then that my dad realized that this man was fucking masturbating while holding on to some of the swimsuits in the racks. My dad then said that he immediately felt angered and outraged at this. He thought right away of his daughters and wife that were in the fitting rooms, no more than a few feet away from this sick fucking man. And well, his protective instincts then took over. He marched right up to the man, and he then shouted at him that he's a disgusting piece of shit. The man looked startled and actually fell down, now completely exposed. Another shopper saw what was happening and alerted a store associate. The police were called and the man was arrested. Not the scariest story, I know, but it just goes to show you how very real these sort of predators are. I'm really thankful my dad was there and that me and my sister weren't the ones running into this demented sicko. Parents, this goes without saying, but always be vigilant around your children. Predators and pedophiles are always looking for their opportunity to take advantage of a child who's left unguarded. You can never be too careful when it comes to the safety of your child. To clarify, I'm 16 years old and non-binary. I look younger than 16 due to my baby face and from me being small. So this happened today early in the morning. My dad decided to go to Target to get groceries, and usually when I go to Target with him, I separate from him to look around the store, usually either clothes or books and collectibles. So this is what I did when I got in there. I decided to look at the clothes in the front of the store by the checkout lines. I didn't see anything I liked, so I go to the back of the store where the technology, toys, and book section is. I start from going to the collectible area to see if there's anything I liked. I kept walking around and looking through the aisles, and I noticed this 6-foot man with slicked back black hair. He had a big scruffy beard and roundish glasses, and he looked like he was in his early 30s. He was wearing an AM/PM work shirt, which I thought was a bit weird, but I just ignored it since it was early in the morning, and I thought that maybe he had to work after this. I noticed after a bit that he would randomly pop up to wherever I was, and it was kinda weird, but I didn't think too much into it. After a bit of time of me looking around, I decided to go walk around the kids' toy section to see if he was following me. And to my horror, I realized he was, since I'd walk through the aisles, and he would just always pop up right in front of me or to the side of me. I'm also very awkward, and I really don't like confrontation at all, and so I try to avoid social interaction most of the time. I walk through the middle aisle and stop, and then the same guy who's been following me stopped as well, and he then said to me, "You look cute. Why don't you do a photo shoot with me for $250? I had frozen up and I started fidgeting. I don't know. Maybe, I said to try and make him go away, but he just kept on persisting and saying different prices to make me say yes. At one point he had stated, "Are you nervous?" During this whole time, I didn't know what to do and I was really uncomfortable. At one point he had asked me if I was here by myself. I said no, but by this time, alarm bells were really going off in my head, but I didn't know how to get away from the situation. He then said something along the lines of, "Do you have Snapchat or Instagram? Why don't you add me?" I really debated on saying yes or no, but my shyness got the best of me, and I then said to him, Yeah, I have an Instagram." So I showed him it, and he typed it in his phone and followed me. He then told me that my username was cute, which was kinda weird because it was just a random username, but I know what you're all thinking. Why the hell did you give it to him? Well, I panicked. I couldn't say no, due to me just not being able to say no because of my nervousness. After this, he went on again about the photo shoot, and he then stated it'll be below the face, which I thought was really weird because it was pretty damn obvious I was a minor, so I just said I'll think about it. There was a long moment of silence, and he then said, "Well, did you think about it?" And I didn't say anything. After a couple of minutes of him trying to convince me to say yes, he said, "If you think about doing it, just snap or text me." I then walked away and started panicking, and I then sat down on one of the bottom shelves in the book aisles. I just sat there panicking and looking around. I saw my dad, and I walked over to him since he was done getting everything. I didn't tell him what happened due to being scared of what he might say to me. When we checked out, I thought it was really weird that when we went to the checkout lines, the man was nowhere to be seen at this point, which was really weird to me. We left shortly after, and I decided to block him since. This is where the story ends. If the man ever sees this, I hope we don't meet again. In the summer of 2017, I had moved to Texas from the East Coast. Being a night owl, I'd often go on really long walks during the late nights. I was heading home on one walk when I passed by the 24/7 Walmart. I decided to go inside and grab some snacks when a group of about 6 addicts greeted me. They are playing around with the shopcrafters and games within the entranceway. I managed to avoid them, but I noticed a few of them staring me down as I entered the store. I told one of the 2 cashiers working in the front all about them, and then one of them informed me that security was on the way. I went around, grabbed enough snacks to last the night and the morning, and then started to head towards the second entrance to avoid those addicts. But unfortunately, 3 of them had come to the second entrance, still causing a nuisance. Seeing them staring at me, I turned around and bought 3 extra items: a backpack to carry my food and other items, a baseball bat, and finally, a flashlight for a reason I'll disclose in a little bit. Anyway, I'm trying to walk out of the store, baseball in hand slung over my shoulder. There were 2 girls and 1 guy. One girl was busy just staring into space, the second slowly reaching towards my backpack, followed by the guy. I take my bat and basically stab it into the girl's chest, making her cry in pain and double back. The guy rushes at me until I then raise my bat, prepared to swing at him. He flumps on the ground, arms raised to protect him if I attack. I left him trembling on the ground near his friend before rushing out of the store, thinking the other 3 members were still at the first entrance. I decided to take the back way to my house. Now, I got the flashlight because the back way to my house was under construction, with only earth and 2 streetlights in the area. So I circle the site when I hear random scuffling. I keep my flashlight aimed ahead, but I can then see a shape moving through the darkness right towards me. The closer I got to my apartment, the closer the visage got towards me. So I spun around and aimed the light into the shadows, shining at the 3rd addict who was staring into space from earlier. She glares at me and starts cursing me for attacking her friends. I swiftly back away towards one of the streetlights. Once underneath it, I put away my flash and gripped the bat with both of my hands, while screaming at her to back the fuck off. The angry woman doesn't listen, and she rushes at me like she's a rabid animal. As soon as she got in range, I smashed the bat full force right into her forehead. The woman drops onto her back, knocked out by the blow. I then use my flashlight for double checking for danger, before booking it back home. A few days later, I went back to the Walmart during the night, carrying my 3 items with me just in case. So the cashier from the night before told me that after I left, cops came and arrested 5 of the group. Apparently they were on crack and they went into the Walmart high off their mind. The thing that really bugs me to this day is the girl that I knocked out seemingly wasn't caught. So what the hell happened with her? Without being specific, I live in southern Canada in a relatively decent-sized city, but one that has always felt safe to me. I mean, it is Canada, right? I've always had an interest in true crime, and I've always been aware of my surroundings, hence my post here. It was a beautiful day. Winter was coming to an end, and as a last-minute decision, I decided I needed a hair product that I could only get at my local Walmart. Me being 20, I drove myself, and I parked my car and got out, walking towards the Walmart. As I'm walking, I hear a man out of nowhere calling, "Ma'am! Hey ma'am!" It's a man in his 50s to 60s with glasses. He then approaches me, asking how I like my car, because his son was thinking about getting the same one. Fair enough, but not really, as I drive a common Ford car. I answer him, and he then pinches my coat as someone pulls out of their spot. He goes on to tell me how I should always be locking my doors from the inside before I get out, because someone got some of their stuff stolen, and that I have to be safe as a girl, blah blah blah. He grabbed my coat again and continued about the story. I was being polite, and I thought that maybe he was just a too friendly old man. My parents did raise me to be polite. I was just looking forward to making it into the store. A second man then approaches the first man, wearing a black baseball cap. And he looked older, definitely in his 60s. They were now chatting with each other, as if they just happened to run into each other. I thought it was a natural occurrence, until they continued walking together, not saying anything, while the first man continues on his conversation with me, or at least he tried to. The first man put his arm out, kind of like in the gesture of go through the door first. So I did, not thinking anything of it, even though the store was 3 people wide easily. I was getting a tad nervous at this point, and I walked in the store really quickly. I made a direct right into the themed aisles, and I speed walked down to the shampoo aisle, which wasn't that far. I also only had to turn down one of the aisles to find it, so I hadn't been pursuing down aisles looking. I knew exactly where to go when I was grabbing. I was down the aisle for less than 5 seconds when that first man suddenly walked down the aisle. I looked up, and a sick feeling invaded my body. My fight or flight then kicked in. I grabbed the thing I wanted and hurried towards the cash registers. I then picked a female to cash me out, just in case I would have to say something. I'm in line now, behind only one man, and I look behind me to see that it's the second man who the first man ran into right before entering the store. He was now walking back and forth all along the checkouts, watching me, with nothing in his hands. Keep in mind, I was literally in the store for less than 5 minutes. As I cash out my things, I say to the one cashier over the second man who was now watching me, cashing out a pack of gum. He finished cashing out first, and then just stood there on the path towards my only exit. It was as if he was waiting for someone, even though he never initially entered the store with this man. They just happened to run into each other, and as far as I could tell, they weren't shopping together. I contemplate my next move, and instead of asking the cashier for help, I figured these 2 older men depended on the sneak attack, rather than being able to catch someone, so I book it. Also, don't do this like I did. You should always pay attention to your surroundings. But I speed down my best friend in tears as I'm running to my car, frantically telling her I'm being followed. The 2 men are following me, and I don't know what to do. I make it to my car and get in, lock all of the doors, and I don't see the first man's truck parked around me anymore. I obviously took the long way home, making sure I wasn't being followed. I'm often kept up at night, wondering what could have happened to me. I live in a border city, easy access to the highway. It's really easy to think about me ending up another face plastered to a billboard. Thank God that never happened. I was a manager at a Target and had a really horrible experience with a customer one time. I always found the situation very strange. For the most part, customers are very pleasant and not all that bad in comparison to some other places. I have worked with the public my entire adult life, and people can be absolutely horrible sometimes, but they were a little bit better at Target. In the few years that I've worked there, I never once had to call security or physically escort someone off the premises. I only once ever had to call the police on someone, and I would actually make the case that he was only a target to creep on girls, so I'm not even sure that really counts. But anyway, I digress. My story with that guy was actually really interesting, and I feel a weird combination of anger and sympathy for this one kid. He must have been about 19 or 20 years old, really tall. One of the weirdest looking kids I've ever seen, and I don't mean that in a judgmental way or anything. He was just really strange looking. It probably made life for him really difficult. So I can at least understand where he was coming from when he did what he did. Absolutely doesn't justify it or anything, but I can understand him at least, if that makes sense. Anyways, it all started on a usual afternoon. I'd just gotten off the phone with corporate, and if you're wondering, yeah, it's always a nightmare. I was looking forward to doing some inventory checks and whatnot. The store had been awfully busy that week. I had a customer who wanted to speak with me. I went out to talk with her, and she told me about an employee who had been inappropriate with her. I guess one of our people was helping her decide on clothes and was standing a little too close to the dressing room door. Honestly, she struck me as a drama queen. I kinda just brushed it off and I told her we'd look into it and make sure our employees don't do anything like that again. But when you're a manager, you hear complaints like that all the time, and a good chunk of them are from people who just want a free item or discount or something. I got another complaint that day from another customer. This one made me a little more intrigued. It was from someone who looked like she came from a wealthy home, probably not looking for a handout here. She said that one of our employees had felt her up while she was looking at clothes. Now, that set off some alarm bells, because that meant that one of my workers was physically creeping on customers on the job. I told her I would look into it, and I called the meeting before everyone went home. I explained the situation, and I said that whoever was responsible to come into my office and have a chat with me, that I would go easy on them if they admitted to doing it without forcing me to look into it. My personal philosophy is that people know when they do wrong, and they just want an opportunity to right their wrongs. So I tried to give it to them, but everyone went home. No one admitted anything, and that was when it was on. We couldn't look at the security camera footage in the area because all of this had been going on near the dressing rooms. The closest security camera we have is on the outside rack of the clothes, but it doesn't give us very much indication of just what's going on near the dressing rooms. I asked one of my favorite employees to try and keep an eye on that area over there, and he told me he would. 2 days went by, and he didn't see anything. I didn't get any more complaints either. Very strange. Of course, it wasn't very long before we had another complaint. I then asked the woman what the employee looked like. She forgot the name on the tag, but she told me that it was a tall, skinny guy with weird-looking glasses. And right off the bat, I knew it wasn't anyone on my team. We didn't have a skinny guy with glasses. And immediately, I knew that we were dealing with someone pretending to be an employee. I gave a heads up to my team and had everyone on the lookout. I remember getting a text message from one of my female team members. She told me that she had spotted someone like that over by the clothing section. I immediately went over there to look around, but before I did, I made sure to put on my jacket around my uniform. That way it wouldn't be obvious I was the manager looking to bust this guy. I spotted him. This kid stuck out like a sore thumb. At first, I was worried I would be dealing with some middle-aged creep. I kinda felt bad when I realized this was some high school or college kid just being a weirdo. He was wearing what looked like a Target uniform. If you look close enough, you could tell it was fake. But I guess the average customer doesn't really know the difference. I then walked over to him, and I asked him to see me in my office. The look of terror on his face that then washed over him in that moment was unforgettable. He wasn't trying to run or anything, and I brought him in and set him down. From what I could tell, he was an otherwise really good kid. He was going to the local community college, had good grades, went to church, the whole 9 yards. I asked him why he was doing this, and he said it was because no girls in his college would ever date him. I tried to explain to him that being a creep to strangers by impersonating a Target employee isn't the answer. I told him I could call the police and actually have him arrested for what he was doing. But I told him I wouldn't though. I know having something like that on your record can really mess up your life, and I wanted to give him the benefit of the doubt. After all, he hadn't really done anything horribly bad in the store. He seemed like he got the memo. Well, he didn't though. It must have been about 2 or 3 months later that I got another report about something like that. Apparently this woman was looking for a new sweater, and a Target employee kissed her on the cheek. My mind then jumped to the only thing I could think of, and I called the police. I was really willing to give him the benefit of the doubt, but he had dug his own hole here. He was in the same area doing the same exact thing as before. I don't know what happened to him after the fact, but what I can tell you is that one of the cops recognized him. I guess this wasn't the first time that he was being a creep in clothing stores pretending to be an employee. But other than that one weird kid, the people at Target are normally very okay people.